Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Kuri, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. So usually I communicate with my clients during the weekend, and I like to do that to keep myself updated to what's going on, see if they're still doing the homework that they're doing, so sort of trying to keep them accountable. But at the same time, it gives me an opportunity to see how things are going, because that's the prime time to actually try and have sex. So generally, I try and have a gauge on, see how the weekends are going, and then so it gives us an idea of what we're going to be covering the following week. So it's proved to be useful, especially for the past 3 weeks. That's what I've been doing, and it's been very useful. It gives us a direction in terms of where to go during the week, and it gives me an idea of where we are within the framework. So it's a very important piece. So I got an interesting message from a client, and he was asking a question, and it was a valid question, and it's something that I have not addressed in the podcast or any of my coaching, but it's something that I've applied in my own life. So, and it comes down to, he was asking a question, what if she's pleasuring herself, but then I'm not part of it? So, because I'm in a sexless relationship, we're sexless. She's not showing any interest or moving forwards in terms of trying to get things back on track, but she's still finding time to explore herself sexually. So, and it's a valid question, because you think when a sexless relationship, things are not all the way we want it to be in terms of fulfillment within the relationship and happiness in the relationship. But while we know that having sex is one of the ways of us get connecting and one of the ways for us to feel fulfillment, you are out there doing your own thing and not participating, or at least not participating. And I think usually when you see it from that perspective, where she's going on to explore herself, it's very easy to fall under the trap of, she would rather do that by herself than with me. And it's not a really good track to go by. And I've gone down through that path where I've started second guessing myself, and am I attractive enough? Am I good enough? Is she disgusted by me? And you go through all these emotions, and it's a fair assessment. But generally, I started realizing that usually when it comes to sex, it's a personal thing. Before you met this person, they discovered sex by themselves. And in terms of self-exploration, they've done that before, way before you got married, way before, especially when they're in their teens, when they started discovering that they were feeling horny and aroused and all those things, they started exploring by themselves. So there's certain times when we've done it, all of us as men, we've all wanked and so on. And when you're doing so, for sometimes, while it's important part of discovery in terms of sex and discovering what your body does in terms of climaxing and arousal and really discovering yourself, sometimes we end up falling into the trap of using it as a way of escaping, feeling lonely, feeling depressed, so we start using it as a way, because generally when you start feeling really, really low in terms of your mood and maybe sometimes shame and self-pity and so on, it can become really overwhelming. And because we have this tool, lack of a better term, where you can fire up some dopamine, you generally then go into self-exploration, which then makes you just have this rush of dopamine into your brain, and then you get this sort of relief because you now got this real feel-good chemical. So you're almost trying to replace this, or at least mask these other issues that are going on. So therefore, when you do so, it perpetuates your feeling of despair and loneliness, because after the dopamine subsides, then you rediscover. It's almost like, and you can replace masturbation, sex exploration to alcohol. Then, the guy who's drinking because he wants to forget that he's in the shit place, that guy will drink, get drunk, get wasted, and then when he wakes up, those problems are still there. So generally, when it comes to a sexless relationship, there might be some negativity centered around your interactions sexually, which stops her from feeling aroused. And some of those problems are coming from the fact that when she does play with herself, or sex exploration or masturbation, whatever you want to call it, that again compounds on itself. Now, some of you guys already have, sessions that you wank and do your own thing and you try and relieve yourself. That's not a bad thing, but it's a bad thing when you've got this artificial way of connecting, because over a period of time, it's, especially if you're escaping the feeling of loneliness. This is the reason why I say do not masturbate. It's not because it's a bad thing or there's a religious thing behind it. It's more to do with the fact that if you are doing it to escape loneliness, what it does, it just compounds on the thing that you're trying to escape. So when your partner is doing it, she could be doing it from that perspective. And the good news is that she's discovering her arousal process, she's discovering her climax process, and she will orgasm. So that means that there is at least some sexual desire, which is pretty good, because then it's not that difficult to redirect it to your relationship. Well, it's difficult to direct to the relationship, but when you do direct it to your relationship, it becomes this overflowing thing that you can continuously have, which is what happened within my relationship, where I could see there were signs that she was doing stuff by herself, but we're within this sexless relationship. And initially, I took that frame of, why is she doing that? Why is she not spending time? But then I realized that her sexuality is her sexuality. It's this. I shouldn't feel entitled to what she should give me, because the moment you feel entitled, it alters your body language. It alters the way you interact when it comes to sex. So it becomes a very important piece that you don't feel entitled. Whatever she does with her sexuality is what she does with her sexuality. What you do is do the things that you can control, which is create the environment, be dominant, be a leader, be fun, be exciting. Do all those things, and then that is what's going to turn her sexual desire towards you. And again, this is almost like, I'm trying to find a good example for this, but her sexuality is her personal thing that you should respect, and you should have boundaries as well. So her time, whatever she decides to do to utilize that time, you shouldn't be in that decision making of it. You can influence the decision by getting the desire to be towards you, but you cannot feel entitled to that sexual act to you because she's doing it. Just because she's doing it, it has to be towards you. And again, it's very easy to fall into that trap, because when within a sexless relationship, you get this scarcity mindset where you think, okay, anything that is sexual now needs to be added to the relationship. There isn't any out of that. Anything that's to do with sex has to be added to the relationship. You've now decided, because that's how you're now thinking, because of that scarcity mindset. But you have to start going beyond it, which is I gave him that answer, the first one, and also gave him the caveat that it could be a case that she's blocked, any sexual arousal, and she's now going through the process of discovering that, and that's okay. That's a good part. Well, then, if she's exploring by herself, she's going to explore. She's trying to figure out a way of feeling desire and going past whatever issues she's facing with the shame, all of these things. She's trying to work through it, and as she's working through it, she's probably thinking, if I can work through this, maybe then I can direct it to my husband. So you have to start seeing that way, and you cannot stake claim to a sexuality, or at least whatever time she gives towards sex. You're not entitled to it. And I learned that the hard way, because when I could release that, the more I released it, and that's the funny part about changing a sexless relationship, the more you release any entitlement towards the sex, and the more you release any sort of pushing or trying to receive sex, the more she's susceptible to trying to give you more. So there's this almost releasing. The more you release, the more you become attractive sexually. So I made this episode because I'm honored to make a teaching lesson for everyone. At the same time, just to reiterate with my clients, so I can, if you listen to this before we actually have a conversation today. It gives him a chance to start having some questions to think about where we should go with the conversation, because I think this week we'll be covering this and then cover a bit of the stuff that we did last week, so we can continue on, so we can continue the progress. So he knows who he is, and it's always a delight to speak to him, and this is the reason why I'm making this episode, because I know he would prefer, everybody gets an idea about how to deal with this situation, because it's something that I dealt with, and this is how I overcame it. So this is how I dealt with it within my relationship. So it might be different with you, and it's something that we can figure out together. So thank you very much, guys. See you guys soon. Take care.